kepada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, kena sembahyang istiqarah, then I think God will guide you what is the best thing to do. But you will have to make a decision, and always don't think very short term. Often in our graduates, even in Proton, they always think about short term. They always think about the glamour. They always think about the opportunity. They always think about the pay. But they always forget what is in the long term. To be successful, you always have to set targets, and target doesn't come within 1 or 2 years. I make it a point, throughout my career life, every 5 years I will set my own target, and that is something that I put on a piece of paper. I decided I put a lot of thoughts into what I want to be in the next 5 years, and what the route I would like to take to be. If you aspire today to be a CEO, for example, in the next 10 to 15 years, and I believe it's not impossible, you have to set the route and the target that you want to take. As Stephen Covey had said in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the first habits is you have to begin with an end in mind. Whatever you do, the end must be very clear. If you want to own, for example, a Ferrari, there was a very famous story, you have to put a picture of the Ferrari on your dashboard every day. And one day, inshallah, God willing, you will be driving a Ferrari. If you want to be a doctor, you have to put your favorite doctor. But without an end in mind, you'll be groping in the dark and not knowing where you want to go. Particularly today, it's more acute because there are a lot of competition out there. As much as you think you are the best of the breeds, there are people in UTM, in UM, and any other universities, they are also claiming they are best of breeds. So where does it stop? What's going to make the difference between you and the rest of the people, not only here in domestic, but also from foreign universities that's coming in from Cambridge, from MIT, Harvard, and so on. So what's going to make what's going to make the difference? The difference is going to be what's going to be here in your heart and in the attitude that you're going to have out there. So please bear in mind, friends, that as you go along this journey, as you take the first step to your employment, there will be setbacks. And sometimes the setback is not the most popular thing to do. And it's the most difficult to accept. But as long as you have a very strong belief in yourself, inshallah, God willing, I think there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I had to make that decision, and the time had come when I was in 10 years in Petronas, and already at that point in time, I was already highlighted as a fast track, but I had to make another decision after the last lap of my tenure in Petronas. I wanted to do more, and there will come in your life that you have to say, what's it for me? What am I going to be? What am I all about? If this is the journey that I want to go through, and I've decided after knowing about oil and gas industry for the last 10 years, I want to go to a different sector, and the sector that I was looking for was manufacturing. With the background of civil engineering, with 10 years in oil and gas, going to uncharted territories in manufacturing could be very challenging. But I decided that that's what I want to do, because if you look at the industrial master plan of the country at the point of time, manufacturing is going to be one of the pillars or the engine of growth. And that is why I felt that it's timely for me to know about manufacturing. And obviously at that point in time, the premier manufacturing arm of the government is the heavy industry company of Malaysia, which is HICOM. So I left Petronas, even though the opportunities was very clear. I took the risks, and I tendered my resignation. At that point in time, I went to see Tan Sri Hassan because I was working for him, and said that I make a decision, and he, and we left, and parted in good terms. And till today, I still keep in touch with Tan Sri and the rest of my peers and my colleagues in the company. So it was a very difficult decision to make. I remember again, as I thought the journey was going to be very, smooth, because you come at Petronas, you work in Fortune 500, you have certain air about you. You go to a company, you expect people will say, "Well, you are Petronas, I'm going to learn." But long and behold, the truth is different from the reality. I had to work my way into the organization, and I remember at that point in time, obviously I was married, and I had to make a few sacrifices. I still remember before I left Petronas, my last year, my wife had quit the company. My wife also, for your information, also worked at Petronas. We met. And she left Petronas before I did, and she took a job, I remember, and that requires her to have a car. And at that point in time, being young, being married, we cannot afford to have 2 cars. So we discussed, I had to make the sacrifice. I gave her the car, and I had to take a bus every morning at 6:30 in the morning to Dayabumi. I had to take the bus back every day, and by the time I get home, it's about 7:30 every day. And you remember, you can imagine at that point of time, I was, working for corporate planning, and you had to wear a suit because you had to enter meetings, and I take a metro bus from Subang Jaya at 6:30 every morning to be on time. I remember one time, I overslept in the bus. Rather than stopping in Dayabumi, I had to stop in Puduraya, and I had to walk back. So it was a very enriching experience for me that brought me to my knees to say that, it's not about being clear or being easy. It's about making sacrifices. And it really taught and prepared to the journey that I was going to take when I left Petronas, when I was in HiCom, where very uncharted territories, and I had to learn. And learn I have. I read a lot of books, and every time you go to a new company, every time you have to go to a new industry, the most important thing that you have to prepare and you have to be ready is to always open for changes and open for knowledge. It's not going to come to you, on a silver platter. You have to go to libraries, you have to look at literatures, you have to go to the internet, and you have to talk to understand. And, God was kind, and I was given a task, and again, another setback. I thought I was comfortable doing in Shah Alam, at the HiCom head office in Shah Alam. Then I was then transferred to Pekan, another small town, not as bad as Segamat, because Kuantan was very far, was not very near. I was not very far, and I had to stay in Kuantan, in Pekan for almost 3 years. And every weekend I had to drive back home to see my family, and obviously by that time I already had a kid. So it's another journey that I had to go through, and often enough I wanted to just give up. But I remember, the decision that I made in the life Petronas, and I would not want to be one day regret a decision that I had to make, and I had to persevere. I had to have the patience, and obviously to make the sacrifice, a balance between work and family that I had to leave behind in Kuala Lumpur. But I think everything paid off. I learned the hard way. I was exposed, and within a few years, at the age of 37, I was already the CEO of the company in looking at all the operation in Pekan. Again, when it comes down to your life, when you have achieved a target, I had to make another decision. And I think the story goes on and on, and alhamdulillah today is back to national service. I've been in Proton for the last 5 years, and it's been a rewarding opportunity, and it's always about challenges. It's always not very easy to be leading a GLC. You have to manage the government, you have to manage the politics, you have to manage the people in the company. As we go global, the complexity, the business become more complex. Why I'm relating to you this story, is that to remind ourselves as graduates, and I was in your shoes many, many years ago, that the world out there will be different. Regardless whether you come from a well-to-do family, regardless whether you've come from a kampong, or underprivileged family, it will not be enough to prepare for you for what you're about to face when you go out. The only difference that is going to make between a good and a bad employee is about what you have in your heart and the character that you're going to build. Education, and I think, academic is very important. There's no, question about it. You cannot be a 4.0 GPA graduate, but it will not guarantee you success in the world out there. I have, in my journey, have interviewed many people, even in Petronas and also in Proton. And obviously you see the best in class and you've seen the worst in class. But I can tell you, after